Yo, what is up guys? Blake here bringing you a special video, and today we're going to be talking about the best way to get all the gear, jewels, and spellements in Karamelle. So I guess let's just go ahead and go straight down the list and start with the gear. So a lot of the gear in Karamelle is pretty good. I know a lot of people have been asking, yo, is it better than Dragoons? Is it an upgrade? Is it worth it? There's a great way to check. So once you come to Karamelle, you come to Johan here and you check out the recipes. These are the exact same as the gear that drops from all the different bosses in Karamelle, and the cool thing about it is that you could craft it, but the amount of chunks that you need is absolutely ridiculous. But you can check exactly what the recipe is. So let's say you wanted to come here and be like, okay, what is the Uber fire cap, which is Uber is the one that drops from bosses, the Lightful is the one that you craft, but they have the exact same stats. So you could come here with your Dragoon set and then compare the two together and see, oh, okay, these are the stats that it has, is it worth farming for or not? For PvP, what I would recommend is only the Athame and the Amulet are really worth it. The ones are the executive ones. You don't need to craft those. They drop fairly easily, and I'll get into those later on in the video. You could maybe do something with the ring, but in general, for PvP, the Athames and the Amulets are the best. The other pieces of gear, I find that Dragoons is better. If you compare, for example, these two together, you will see that the Dragoon's hat gives you more health, more accuracy, more critical, which is just huge, right? In exchange for what? 1 damage, 1 pip, and a little bit more shads. It is a nice hat, don't get me wrong, but I feel like just, you know, having 40 extra critical, especially with the new crit changes, is so much more worth it. So in my opinion, the hat on the left is better. You also have to understand that all of Karamelle gear gives no set bonus. So you could have, you know, all 7 pieces of Uber or whatever, every piece of gear, you will not get any set bonus. Whereas the Dragoon's gear obviously has a set bonus, and getting, you know, the extra accuracy, the extra damage, pip conserve, or potentially pips can be huge. So I still think that Dragoon's gear is better, but let's say, you know, you wanted to go for a shad setup and go crazy, you could do something like, I don't know, hat, you could do Athame, Amulet, and hat, and then do like, I don't know, Dragoon. I mean, you could do like the Uber boots or something like that. But yeah, I would recommend for PvP, just focus about the Athame, the Amulet, and farm for the executive one. Now for PvE, this gear I think is slightly better. It really just depends on your playstyle and what you're going for, but I think that having a lot of shads in PvE is very important, because then you can, you know, shad much quicker, especially as a storm if you want to be able to bugs first turn. I feel like if you have a lot of the Uber gear, your shads are going to be crazy, and you'll be getting, you know, a shad almost every time on the first turn, which is really nice. So if you do want to farm for the hat, she is located in Sweetsburg. So you just take the teleporter, which is right here, which is really nice. And you go to Sweetsburg, right? And then once you're in Sweetsburg, you're gonna go and walk to this gummy plant factory. You go inside of it and walk all the way down to the end, and then once you go to the end, there'll be a sigil, and you go in there and there's Copycat. It's a 3 boss, I guess, little instance, and then once you defeat her, you have a chance of getting the hat. The drop rates are pretty low, just be mindful, but yeah, that's the best place to get the hat. Another thing to be mindful of is that all of the gear, all of the Uber gear for every school drops from the Aberrant Paradox, which is the final boss in the game, and she is located, I will be explaining that in just a second, but yeah, you could farm her for it, but the problem is that the pool is too big. The final boss does have a higher drop rate than the other bosses in terms of getting a piece of Uber gear, but you could get any piece of Uber gear for any school. So I feel like, you know, if you're really trying to, if you're like, okay, I want the Fire Amulet, for example, let's say you want the Uber Fresh Baker Rope, you shouldn't farm Aberrant Paradox for her, you should farm something else. But let's say you have 7 characters and you have, you know, a full team and you want to farm her, I personally still wouldn't recommend it, but it is an option for some players who want, you know, to just get lucky and go to a one-stop shop for everything, basically. Alrighty, so now let's go ahead and take a look at the robes. So again, you come back here and you can compare them for your school. If you look at these two, you will see pretty quickly that the Dragoons is still a lot better. Again, you get a set bonus, you get 150 more health, you gain 50 more block, 1 more resist, 4 accuracy, 3 pierce. So it's a lot better in my opinion for PvP, like I said. For PvE, I don't really see why anybody would ever use this robe, because it doesn't really do anything good except give you shads. Other than that, every everything about this robe is pretty bad, to be honest with you, because like let's say, oh, I just want a tanky robe, you could just get, you know, like Jade robe, spooky robe, but I guess it is a free to play alternative, so that is an option. But again, I wouldn't recommend farming for this robe for PvP or PvE. The way to get to her is you go into the main building, into Nana's headquarters. She is the Aberrant Paradox is where it drops from, and that is the final boss in the game. So you know, where you enter that cavity and there's that dark zone, you just go into there and you just fight the final boss. And the cool thing about the final boss is that he drops everything, right? So any uber gear from any piece on any school, and then you can also get Spellements. You can also go get Karamelle chunks, which is what is used to craft the new gear as well. I don't know if I have any in my backpack right now, but yeah, the Karamelle chunks is what you need to craft the new gear. As you can see, if you go here, for example, you need Karamelle chunks to craft it. So the cool thing about the final boss, like I said, is that everything drops there. But yeah, again, wouldn't recommend the robe personally. So now let's go and move on to the boots. So the boots, as you can see here, another comparison, really aren't an upgrade in my opinion. Sure, you get 1 extra damage, you get 2 shads and 1 extra power pip, but in exchange for that, you lose 120 health, you lose, you know, 30 critical, you know what I mean? So yeah, you can make it work if you're going for a very high shad setup, and this might be good in PvE, but I wouldn't recommend it personally for PvP. And these drop from Gobsmack, which is located in the town of Gobblerton. You guys remember that, the zone with the gobblers? Yeah, it's located in there. I'm sure a lot of you guys will remember that quest just from how annoying it was, but yeah, that's where it drops them. So next up is the wands, and the wands drop from Heidi, and Heidi is actually going to be a very important person because she drops a lot of really good stuff. So yeah, the wands, the uber wands, as you can see here, they drop from Heidi. I don't have the fire one. I wish I did, so I could do a comparison, but these are the best wands for PvE in my opinion. They're extremely good. They give you great shads, great pip conserve, really good damage and critical, which is just absolutely fantastic. These wands are beautiful. They're really good, and I love how they're such good wands for PvE. For PvP, what I would recommend is personally the executive thermal meter. The executive wands are the best wands for PvP, and they can be bought from the bazaar. I talked about it in some other videos, and a lot of people have been asking me, where do they drop from? The executive wands are actually quite easy to farm. What I would recommend doing is doing this battle right up here, where you fight the Shadow Nana. This is the best way to farm for it. You can get the wands fairly easily. They drop like crazy. You do a few runs of these, I guarantee you, you'll get the executive wands. You can also try to buy them in the bazaar. You might be able to get a few of the schools, which is pretty good. But this wand is so good. I mean, take a look at it, right? It gives you 6 pierce, which is pretty comparable to, you know, other wands for fire. 76 critical, but then on top of that, it gives you 23 damage and 18 chads. The executive wands are ridiculously good for aggro schools like Firestorm and Myth. For more defensive schools, I don't think they're as good. Like, for example, I wouldn't use it on an ice wizard. I probably wouldn't use it on a balance wizard because I need pip conserve. You could maybe make it work on a Myth or a life, something like that. But yeah, anyway, that's the best way to get the executive one. And then the Uber Artisan staff drops from Heidi, and she is located in Gutenstadt. I think that's how you pronounce it, but she's located here. You just come right here, right, to Gutenstadt. You take the little teleporter. You come here and you will find somebody by the name of Dieter. I think that's how you say it, but you come right here and Dieter will give a quest. So you come talk to him real quick. Yo, what's up? You take it, creature known as Heidi, and this unlocks the quest line to this dungeon right here. And the really nice thing about Heidi is that she drops a lot of stuff. So the best way to get jewels in the game, I was going to talk about it later, but I guess I'll talk about it right now, is to farm the side quest bosses, because the main quest line bosses, they do drop some jewels, but they don't really drop the good jewels. So Heidi is the best way to go. You can farm all of them. I think they all have a pretty similar rate of what jewels can drop. I'm pretty sure they all have the same pools. Like I said, the wikis haven't been updated, so it's a little bit too early to tell, but I do think that Heidi is the best one, and the reason for that is because she is the easiest battle to do. You can easily 2-round kill. All she does is summon a minion basically, and she has like 10,000 health. That's literally it. She even blades you, I think, if you do like a buff or something like that. So Heidi is the best way to do it. I've heard other people report Jam Burglar is pretty good too, and Tree Mugger, but the problem is those bosses will take you more than likely more than 2 rounds, unless you have a team of 4 people that are doing, like, you know, some crazy stuff. But yeah, Heidi is the way to go. Like I said, you get the quest and do it here. And then once you do Heidi, she can drop the Uber wands, which are really nice for PvE, and they look pretty cool too, honestly. I really like how they look, and a lot of the new gear in Karamelle. So yeah, I would definitely recommend farming Heidi. On top of that, she drops a lot of the best jewels in the game, so I guess we'll just go over that now. If you go here, she drops the 130 130 to 135 health jewels, which are fantastic for PvP. You know, a nice little upgrade to your gear. It can just make you even more beefy. So if you're into that, definitely go farm here. Yeah, for those jewels. Another cool thing that she drops too is she drops like the 7% jewels. Yeah, that's right. 7% jewels are now out. You can get mending opals, and I'm pretty sure you can get healing opals as well. But yeah, the fact that there's 7% now is pretty crazy. And yeah, I'd recommend farming Heidi. And the best part, in my opinion, at least for PvP, is that you can get 14 accuracy jewels. That is insane. Because before this, the highest accuracy jewel that you could get as a free-to-play player, or I mean as a paying member of the game, was 12%. That was the highest. You couldn't go higher than 12%. If you wanted a 13% jewel, which was the former highest jewel, you had to get it from packs. There was no way to craft it. Nobody dropped it. It was only from packs. So this is really nice that it's an upgrade for everybody, and you can obtain it by farming. I do want to say though, word to the wise, the drop rates are horrible. They are absolutely horrible. I farmed Heidi probably, I want to say, at least 40 times yesterday, and this was all I got. I got 7% healing opal. I did not get any healing jewels. This was from doing the main quest, I think, or farming somebody else. This I got from Tree Mugger. I did get a few Spellements, which was nice, but and I did get both of these Uber ones, but yeah, I literally just got 1 jewel. So the drop rates are pretty bad, but Heidi, in my opinion, and a lot of other players will agree with you, this is the best place to farm for jewels and the best way to get the Uber wand. So she's kind of your one-stop shop for jewels, in my opinion. You can't really farm anywhere else for jewels besides the side quest bosses and the Aberrant Paradox. The Aberrant Paradox does also farm cool ones. But the nice thing about it is that you do have a good chance of getting Spellements from fighting side quest bosses like that. So if you really want to rank up your Spellements, that's a good way to do it, is by doing the side quest bosses. So yeah, now let's go to the So the Athame is actually pretty interesting because it's an upgrade. It's definitely an upgrade from Dragoons, for sure, and I'll show you in a second, but it's more of an upgrade for some schools than others. So let me go ahead and just compare the fire one, as you can see here real quick. If you compare these two together, it's quite a nice upgrade, right? You get 50 health, you get 2 damage, and all you lose is 7 block. You keep all your sockets and everything, so it's a cool upgrade, but you do have to understand that you do not get a set bonus, right? So you definitely, especially as a fire where the set bonus is ridiculously good, you want at least that 3-piece. You want that extra 7 damage and 140. I mean, that's like a free mighty, you know, fire giver on your pet, and then the pip conserver is really nice too. Doesn't matter as much for fire, but yeah, it's really, really nice. So I would personally recommend making sure you get a 3-piece bonus, but I've seen what some fires run now is like, you know, fire Dragoon hat, Dragoon robe, and Dragoon boots to get the triple bonus, and then running like the Karamelle Athame and the amulet because both of those pieces are an upgrade. So yeah, it's a lot better, and as you can see for the fire one, it's a considerable upgrade, right? You get 50 health, or 48 health, you get 2 damage, and in exchange for that, you give up 7 block and 1 incoming. I mean, and 6 incoming for 5 outgoing, which I guess doesn't really matter that much. But yeah, that is, as you can see, an upgrade. But now, let me show you what it's like on the life. Alrighty, so I came back here on my life wizard, and if you compare the amulet, take a look at this. Now it's a massive upgrade. You gain almost 130 health. You even gain 2 blocks, so you don't lose any block. You even gain some, and you get an extra 2 damage. So for the fire one, you get about 48 health and 2 damage, but you lose 7 block. And for the life one, you gain 129 health. You gain 2 block, and you gain 2 damage. So the Athames are an upgrade for every single school, in my opinion, but the crazy thing is that it's more of an upgrade for some schools than other, and considerably so. As you can see, the life Athame is much better of an upgrade than, you know, the fire Athame, for example, which is still an upgrade. You know, 2 damage is 2 damage, and 50 health is nice, but obviously the life one is a lot better. So a cool setup that you might want to run on the life, for example, let's say you really need the AoE killers, right, for PvP from the Dragoon's amulet. You could run, for example, robe, boots, and amulet with the new Karamelle Athame, because, you know, although the amulet is nice because it gives you more resist, as you can see if you compare these two together. Look at the amulet. I mean, it's just so beautiful. You get an extra 2 resist, you gain an extra about, you know, 70 health, and you only lose 6 block, and on top of that you get a square socket additionally, which is pretty crazy. So I would, you know what I mean, I would probably go with this amulet, but let's say I was like, man, I really need the AoE killer. I just want to have a 4-pip hit that I can use to kill minions or just do damage because of the new enchant changes with Solar Surge, right? you could just be like, all right, then I'll just use the amulet, because the amulet is still an upgrade, and it's just, you know, extra health damage and stuff like that. So yeah, it's pretty cool. You can kind of make your choices, but it's interesting how the upgrades are definitely better for some schools than other. And for the Athames and the amulets, from what I've seen, it looks like the life and the life one is the best. I mean, you look at the ice one, right? Where's the ice one? It doesn't even give 600 health, and then the life one out here is given 627, and the same goes for the Athame. I feel like the life gear got the biggest upgrade, which I think is good, because life definitely needs some love. So yeah, the Athame, for anybody that's wondering, drops from Bundozer, and Bundozer is located in the Nibelheim mines. I will walk you guys there, just because it is in the mines and it's a little bit more difficult to explain. But you just go into here and you walk up to the Nibelheim mines. Once you are inside the Nibelheim mines, it is literally the first sigil there, and the Bundozer is the second boss of a 3 battle instance. You do not need to do the third instance. You just go in there and then fight the Bundozer. The Bundozer has about 11,000 health, and is fairly easy to kill. I think he does take off blades, but I was just running it with the storm, and then you just elemental blade, and then he'll take off the fire blade and you're fine. You just feint an elemental blade, the storm, like frenzy storm modes. It's an easy 2-round kill. This is where the Athame drops. Again, you can get Spellements from here as well. I don't really think that any good jewels drop, but you can get the Athame, which is really nice. I got a few of the Wunderbar Athames, which I'll show you in just a second, but yeah, this is where you get it from. So here's a pro tip that I wanted to say real quick. If you get the Wunderbar gear, it is still quite good. As you can see, if you compare the Wunderbar Freshbaker knife to the Dragoons one, it's still arguably an upgrade, right? I still get 1 damage. I still get like 20 health, depending on your playstyle. Oh, I didn't even notice you don't get the triangle. So it's meat. Don't even, like, it's meat. But it's good to still keep the Wunderbar gear, because like I said, you can craft it. I wouldn't recommend crafting multiple pieces of gear, just because getting Karamelle chunks is ridiculously hard. It is absolutely horrible. But if you come here and check out the recipe shop, you will find that the Athames and the amulets are actually not that expensive, right? They do cost 8 Karamelle chunks, and like I said, I've been farming a lot. I have all max characters, cosmic, done with the main storyline. I have every Spellement tier 2 upgraded, and I still have only 3 Karamelle chunks. 3. That is correct. 3. So it is incredibly difficult to get Karamelle chunks. But what I would recommend is keeping 1 copy of every Wunderbar gear that you don't have already. So let's say you don't have the Wunderbar, the Uber knife. Let's say you don't have the highest tier storm knife. I would keep this the tier 2 version, just in case you end up crafting it. Because let's say you're farming for everything, right? Like for example, I'm farming for the amulets right now, the Uber amulets. I now have every amulet except for the myth and the life one. So let's say that I get the myth one. It doesn't really make sense for me to farm for just 1 amulet, because I'm most likely just gonna get copies. So what I'll probably do is, once I get everyone but 1 amulet, I'll go and farm for Athames, right? And then while I'm farming for Athames, I have a chance to get Karamelle chunks, whatever. And then once I've gotten every but 1 Athame, then I can check how many Karamelle chunks I have. And let's say I had, for example, 8 Karamelle chunks, which is enough to craft a piece. Then I could be like, okay, instead of farming a boss for the possibility of getting 1 out of 8 Athame drops, or 1 out of 8 amulet drops, because there's 1 for every school and the universal one, why not just go ahead and craft it, right? So that's what I'd recommend doing, is keep the Wunderbar version for each version of the piece of gear that you don't have until you get the Uber, and then trash it. Farm the boss if you have, like, if you need only like 1 school, then like that's different, right? You could craft it, or you could just farm for it. But if you're like me and you have a lot of characters, that's what I would recommend doing, because you never know when it'll come in clutch. They might also increase the drop rate for the Karamelle chunks. So yeah, I would just recommend holding on to your Wunderbar gear. So yeah, now let's get into the amulets. The amulets are absolutely ridiculous. They are so good. They are so unbelievably good. I already have the fire one. I don't even know why I opened this, but as you can see, for every school they are an upgrade. You typically get about 2 resist, about, you know, anywhere between 20 and 50 extra health, and then you lose a little bit of block, which really doesn't matter, because you get, dude, extra resist, extra health, and an extra socket. I can't stress you how good these amulets are. Again, you have to remember, you lose the set bonus, and on top of that, you lose the card, which can be very nice for some schools. It doesn't really matter for a school like Fire, where you play very aggressively and you rely on Brimstone. So this Dragoon upgrade is just, you know, 100% worth it, as long as you keep the 3-piece bonus. But for a school like, for example, Ice, or for a school like Life, you might really want to have that AoE killer, and just have a 4-pip basically enchanted hit in your main deck is also pretty important. But yeah, all these amulets are extremely good, and they drop from Sweetsburg. They drop from, I forget what the building name is, but it's from the Quake Charmer. this is where you farm the Quake Charmer, and the Quake Charmer drops the amulets. The drop rates for the amulets are relatively good, I would say. It is hard to get the amulet that you want, and I think that you might get a slightly higher chance of getting the school that you are on currently, maybe, but honestly, it drops like every amulet. I've been farming Quake Charmer for a long time now, and I've gotten basically every single amulet except for the life and myth one. I literally have like 10 balance ones. I'm not even exaggerating. I have like 8 ice ones and then like 1 of each other one, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, you can farm this one. It's really not too hard. There's 3 bosses, and like I said, it's here in Sweetsburg. This is what I recommend to farm for the amulet instead of farming Aberrant Paradox, because the amulets are quite good. Another thing to note is that the universal amulet is actually slightly better than the fire and storm one. As you can see, the comparisons, the universal one does give you an extra 16 health. It does give you an extra 5 block, and it's, yeah, just 16 health and 5 blocks. So it's not a huge deal, but just to note, if you do get the universal one, it is better than the fire and storm one. And the cards that they give you is basically an Aegis protected blade, with like, that was a blade storm for balance. But for example, like the fire one gives you an Aegis buffed blade for 1 pip, and it's no PvP. I have no idea why they're no PvP, but it's not a big deal. So if you do have the universal one, definitely use that instead for fire or for storm. But yeah, the amulets, like I said, are extremely good. The 3 sockets, extra resist, and all that stuff is just absolutely amazing. So yeah, here's the best place to farm for that. Alrighty, so next up we have the ring. So the ring, as you can see here, I'll compare it. Oh, I'm about to... Okay, I guess not. Alright, I paused the recording, so that might have sounded really weird. But anyway, the ring comes from Judge Veg. Judge Veg is that really annoying boss, which I will show you. I believe it's in Black Licorice Forest. But anyway, here are the rings, as you can see, side by side. So it is an upgrade. It is definitely an upgrade. As you can see, you get 13 health. You get an extra 3 critical. You do get an extra damage, and the same sockets and everything. So for PvE, the rings are fantastic. If you're really into min-maxing your stats, personally, I would recommend it. If you can still get a 3-piece bonus, because it's still good for PvE, right? You want to get that extra 7 damage. So I would kind of figure out what 3 pieces of Dragoons you want if you have it already. You don't need it, but yeah, the ring is a nice little upgrade. I wouldn't recommend it for PvP, honestly, unless you are going for some crit setup and you don't need it. But then if you are, you probably want heal boost, so Dragoons would be better and for the set bonus anyway. But yeah, those drop from Judge Veg, which is located, I believe, in Black Licorice Forest at the very end, right before you go into, I believe, Gobblerton. Yeah. Now, last but not least is the deck. So the decks are okay. I don't think they're anything crazy. You compare these two together, you actually lose 1 critical, but you gain 3 block and 15 health. So it's exactly the same in terms of spells, copies, sideboard, all that stuff. Literally identical. You get a square socket instead, I guess, for these ones, which is, I guess, interesting. I don't know if you wanted to socket something with that. I don't really know, but the decks really aren't that good. If you want a good PvE deck, there are a lot of them that you can get in the bazaar, like the executive decks that give you just way more critical. I don't have any on me right now, but I would recommend personally farming the bazaar. But the decks come from scatter bosses. There's not really one specific boss that drops them. I've gotten the decks. I've gotten Uber decks and executive decks and directors and all those decks from farming Quake Charmer. I've gotten decks from literally like all the bosses. So you can really do whatever. Like I said, the decks really aren't that important, so I wouldn't care about that too much. So yeah, that's about everything. I do want to talk about Spellements real quick before we wrap things up. So when you finish all of Karamelle, the main quest line, you will find that your Spellements will be at around, I want to say anywhere between 60 to 67, around there is typically where most people are once they finish the entire main quest line without doing any side quests and without farming, right? You'll find yourself around there. So it is pretty important to be able to upgrade your spell at least one time. It does make them more powerful, which is nice, and you can choose how you want them, whether it's for PvP or PvE. And let me explain to you the best way to do that. So the best way to get it, in my opinion, is by doing side quests. There aren't that many side quests. I want to say there's about maybe, I don't know, 10 to 12, maybe 10 to 15 side quests scattered across Karamelle. A good way to look for them is to turn on Quest Finder in your settings. You turn that on and it'll tell you, okay, there's a quest in Sweetsburg. So you go to Sweetsburg, and each quest, right, each side quest unlocks, it gives you 2 Spellements every time you turn in a quest, which is pretty nice. You know, it's nothing crazy, but it is enough to get you to tier 2 upgrade. And the cool thing about it is a lot of these quests they're pretty short, fairly simple. You know, it's usually fighting a boss, and most of those bosses do drop something relatively good, or have the chance of dropping something good. You know, whether it be, you know, the 14 accuracy jewels, whether it be, you know, the shiny 7% healing opals or mending opals, whether it be the 130 to 135 health jewels. I think that most of these side quest bosses have a chance of dropping that, so I would recommend doing it at least to level up your spell to tier 2. So yeah, you can just go all across Karamelle, find the different bosses, and do it that way. So I believe that's everything. That's where you get all the best gear in the game, all the best jewels, all the Spellements, stuff like that. I try to go over everything and let you guys know what I think is good for PvP, what I think is not good, what's good for PvE, what's not worth it, that kind of thing. But like I said, a big thing to remember is the set bonus when you're, making your gear. Whether it's for PvP or PvE, you probably still want to have that set bonus just to have the extra damage if you have the gear already. Leveling up your spells, it is quite difficult to get to tier 3. I've been farming a lot on my balance, and I think I'm at like 40 out of 115 for tier 2, and I completed every single side quest, and I've been farming for a long time. So I wouldn't even worry about going for tier 2 unless you only have one character and you play Wiz a ton and you really just want to flex that tier 2. Otherwise, it's incredibly hard to level that up. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. New PvP videos every single day. You guys already know. Thank you guys for the support, and I will see you guys in the next video. As always, peace out, guys.